Arsenal 2, Wolverhampton Wanderers 1. A game that was offset by a brilliant first half by Arsenal and a second half that was extremely nervy. Goals from Odegaard and Bukayo Saka put Arsenal 2-0 up and cruising until the last 10 minutes when Cunha scored and was able to make Wolves give Arsenal a very nervy end. Welcome, guys. My name is Izzy, and we are going to talk about Arsenal and why I think they have some things to be worried about as they chase Manchester City's title crown. But anyways, the game started off very well. Arsenal in the first 25 minutes of the game were everything from scintillating, exhilarating, and beautiful. Think of all the superlatives that you can think of. Arsenal were that. But we have seen this before. We've seen them do this against Nottingham Forest. We've seen them do this against Fulham. And we have seen a certain trend start to crop up against teams that Arsenal face and look very dominant against in the first half, only to make themselves look very tetchy and nervy in the second half. So when Bukayo Saka opened the scoring, Arsenal were looking very good. They were very composed. Defensively, they looked very sound. Gabriel and William Saliba were absolutely marshalling the back line, and they looked as though they were very comfortable. When Odegaard rolled in the second one after some very good build-up play, one could have thought that this could have been a 4 or 5 game goal easily. But unfortunately, the way Arsenal seem to play is that they seem to exert a lot of themselves in the first half when they face the smaller teams, and then they seem to lull themselves into a false sense of comfort as the second half comes in. And against a team such as Wolves that are very well coached, Gary O'Neill, I think, does a very good job of making his players go around and hustle and harry everybody in the opposition and get the ball back very quickly. And we could see signs of Wolves putting up a fight in most of this game. The thing is that Arsenal were so comfortable in the first half that they thought that the second half was probably going to take the same vein of play that it had taken for pretty much most of the match. Wolves had a very clear game plan. Try and nullify the wing play because Arsenal's game is heavily dependent on wing play. Saka and Martinelli are the blood and core of this team. Jesus is very good at making the game knit together and interplay and all of that stuff. You saw it in the first goal. His play when he let Saka in for the goal was beautiful. And yes, the ricochet did help Saka a little bit and it landed right in his spot, but he did very well to take the goal. The same goes with Odegaard. The ball came from the left-hand side. Martinelli with some very good build-up play, and he rolled the ball in effortlessly. And Arsenal were scintillating. They were beautiful. The only problem that I'm starting to see is this trend of Arsenal not closing out games. If this was a game at the Etihad, or if this was a game at Anfield, this game could have easily been closed out after the first half. And I just don't get that sense from Arsenal. I don't know if they seem to think that the game's already sewn up and they can just take their foot off the pedal. We've seen Manchester City do that sometimes, but what Manchester City do is that they make sure they annihilate you first. They make sure the game is 4 or 5-0 before they take their foot off the gas. And we've seen them at times put 8, 7, 6 past teams without taking the foot off the pedal. And that is something that I've heard Pep Guardiola speak about before, even when he was in La Liga. He said that he wants to give a lot of the opposition teams the utmost respect by going full tilt for the whole 90 minutes. Now, that's not to say that that was the game plan that Arteta had. It just seems as though Arsenal are still in that learning process of making sure they can put teams away extremely comfortably and make sure that there's no way back. But there is a trend at home of Arsenal going into a very comfortable lead and somewhere down the line losing that lead. Now, they did it against Fulham, and that was one of the few blotches they had at the start of the season. They almost did it against Nottingham Forest. They didn't do it against your Sheffield Uniteds and the other teams that they have beaten comfortably at home sometimes. But the thing is that the opposition today was Wolves, and Wolves are a team that are always going to keep themselves in the frame. And I can easily see them going away to Wolves and getting a very tough fixture because Arsenal, buoyed by the fact that they're at home, their home fans are vociferous these days. The Emirates Stadium is a cauldron of noise now. You can't really go in there and expect to think that you will out-drown Arsenal fans with your chants and whatever you are going to try to bring against them. Arsenal fans are absolutely vocal these days. So that's not the issue. I just seem to think that Arsenal are not quite there yet. And as good as that first half was, as good as that first 20 to 25 minutes was, you can't contrast it to the second half and feel as though Arsenal are 100% there. Otherwise, it was a decent performance from Arsenal. I don't want to overblow it by making it seem as though they didn't play well for vast majority of that game. And they had control of that game pretty much from start up until about the 84th, 85th minute. You could even see from the substitution that Gary O'Neill was trying to make, he was going to bring on a youngster, but immediately Cunha scored that goal. There was that sense of there's something we can get from this game. And if he would have probably pressed on a little bit longer, you never know what could have happened. He decided to bring in Kaladzic, and you could see him already starting to cause some problems between Gabriel and Saliba. But at the end of the day, it's a victory for Arsenal. It's not something that most people didn't see coming. We all knew that Arsenal were probably going to beat Wolves, but the manner in which you close out a game to me is very important. And I don't want to make it seem as though these are negatives that I'm speaking about, because Arsenal didn't play that badly. They played extremely well for a vast majority of that game. But when you want to close out a game such as that against a very tough opponent, because don't get this twisted, Wolverhampton Wanderers are a good team. And I think that their position in the table belies their opportunity to show themselves as a very good team. And sometimes they have just not gotten the rub of the green this season. Wolves are a very good side, and they can hold the ball just as well as they dish it out. They're very organized, and I liked the approach that they tried to go into this game with. They tried to close out Martinelli and Saka, but today just happened to be the type of day that Martinelli was very good and Saka was very good. And it's all going to be good for Arsenal in the long run. They are slowly starting to get to the team that we want them to be. But I am going to emphasize this. They have to close out games like these. If this was a Liverpool, or if this was a Manchester City, especially a Liverpool of 2 or 3 years ago, this game would have been 3 or 4-0 in the first half, and you would not have been questioning anything going into the last 10 minutes of this game. And like I said, we've seen this before with Arsenal, and against a better opponent, if this was a Brighton or an Aston Villa, this game could have been a draw. But anyways, what do you guys think? Let me know in the comments down below. Once again, Arsenal win 2-1 against Wolves. I'm overjoyed, but a couple of things from Mikel Arteta to quite possibly think about. It's been your boy Izzy. Peace.